So he presented all this evidence, and when we were just talking with the prosecutor, she explained, and it makes sense, that they only consider the evidence that is entered in the court case, and that's how the legal system works. So, the prosecutor or the judge is out reading all of this data outside of the courtroom is irrelevant to what goes on inside the courtroom. And so, unless the defense is bringing forward credible scientific evidence that can prove all of this during the court case, then that can have an effect on the outcome. And of course the prosecution can bring forward their expert witnesses, and she claims that she has had a whole bunch of expert witnesses who can come in and who said under oath that having a low viral load does not decrease risk, and so the judge took that as expert testimony, and it was weighed in the case. So you've got that sort of issue also. So now we'll move on to Jesse, and he's kind of going to explain pick up on that last part about, this wouldn't be an issue if everyone knew their status, if everyone could disclose and feel like they could disclose and could deal with the consequences of that. So he's going to deal with more of the social issues around this.
Hi everyone, thanks. Just to start, I'm a little bit nervous, so sorry if I talk a bit fast or a bit low. Like we said earlier, I'm not an expert, legal or medical expert on criminalization. I've been working at YouthCo for about 3.5 years, so I've seen the negative effect that criminalization has had on our membership and our clients. And I really care about, the effect that this has on gay men and youth. And also, it's a personal issue for me because I've been living with HIV for 5 years now, and it's had I could say a negative impact on my life and a lot of worry. So I'd like just to start by saying, and I don't think there's any better way of putting this, but really, HIV criminalization is so fucked up. Really. The fact that we have our rights are really hard-fought rights. Probably some of you in the audience know a little bit more than I do about how hard it was to get a lot of our rights, and to have systems in society and people slowly erode those rights is just, it makes me really sad. And so I'd just like to thank you all for being here today, because I feel like education and continuing the conversation is really something that we can all do, a really positive thing that we can all do to gain our power back. Okay, so the first slide. So gay men have the right to build community free of overarching societal oppression. And we all know that fostering inclusive and anti-oppressive communities of gay men is the key to preventing new cases of HIV. And by inclusive and anti-oppressive, I mean communities that are inclusive of both positive and negative gay men, of all races, of all body types, and that we really work to support each other. Because the more that we support each other, the more likely we are to go get tested, to engage in safer sex, and to communicate openly with each other. So the media, justice system, and government all discriminate and continue to discriminate against gay men. An example of this right now is we're a little bit uncertain at YouthCo, as are some of the other AIDS service organizations, about what our funding is going to look like the next few years with a conservative government. There's a smaller pool of money, and we're all going to have to compete against each other. So there's just one example of the many ways in which the media, justice system, and government all discriminate against us as gay men, because HIV disproportionately affects us. Criminalization of non-disclosure is counterproductive to the goal of building queer community, and it's my opinion that HIV criminalization is the ultimate manifestation of HIV stigma and oppression in society. And here are some reasons why HIV equals oppression. Where am I? HIV criminalization pits gay men against each other. HIV criminalization ignores the many barriers gay men have to disclosure. And HIV criminalization is based around the fear of the other and HIV stigma rather than reason or effectiveness. And both Michael and Luke talked a lot about that. So So our first point, HIV criminalization pits gay men against each other, removes the individual responsibility for sexual health. It creates the potential for adversarial misunderstandings, resulting in serious consequences for the accused. Unnecessary criminal proceedings create community ripple effects of suspicion and blame. And HIV-positive people become both loaded guns and victims of aggravated sexual assault. And just the justice system calling us victims and deciding that exposure to HIV is parallel to violent rape is just, it's really offensive to me. And if I was someone who experienced actual violent rape, I would be totally offended that these two things are parallel in our justice system. It's a really weird and kind of a sorry statement that, sorry. So HIV criminalization is based on fear and stigma rather than reason or effectiveness. There's no proof that criminal law prevents new HIV infections. And as Luke was saying, if prosecutors are using this as a prevention tool or to even provide justice to victims, it should really be their responsibility to prove that this is the case, which they haven't done yet. HIV transmission doesn't have to take place for a person to be convicted of aggravated sexual assault. And the difference between an unfortunate incident, meaning someone testing positive and having it just be an accident, and aggravated sexual assault is pretty much just an HIV test. And the ramifications of that, I think, are pretty powerful. And something that we don't really talk about too often is really that HIV criminalization ignores the barriers that gay men have to disclose. There's multiple reasons: emotional state, mental state, education level, language barriers, verbal or physical abuse, money or drugs being exchanged, fear of rejection, fear of further disclosure. And it's not safe right now for many gay men to disclose their HIV status. And until we take responsibility for the way that HIV is stigmatized, it will continue to be a big problem in the community, regardless of the criminal law. So next I'm going to go through a case study. And this was the case that really got me fired up about the subject, and is the perfect example of really how this law is a horrible erosion of our civil rights. And I'll just quickly describe it. So in 2009, the partner of a 20-year-old Canadian newcomer client of YouthCo had their much older and abusive partner go to the police and report them for failure to disclose their HIV status. The client was put in custody for 2 weeks. What was determined, the accusation was false. There was a language barrier communicating with police that our client had. And his name and his HIV status were revealed by the media, and his family abroad found out that he was both gay and HIV positive through that reporting. And so, finding out about this and being at YouthCo when this was going on, it made me feel really powerless. And I was like, what can we do to really change it? It seems like these systems are so large, or so much larger than us, that really what can we do? So I took it upon myself to start a bit of a letter writing campaign, and I wrote to different media outlets that had reported his name, just describing how I felt this was wrong and how I found it counterproductive to HIV prevention measures and that it's erosion of our civil rights. And I thought it was a pretty nicely worded letter and one that was not accusatory or anything. And this was a response back. Thank you for your letter. It is a crime to have unprotected sex, or sex at all for that matter, with someone if you're HIV positive and not tell them your status. It exposes that person to a potentially deadly disease, period. That is the law here in Canada. While all of this is an allegation at this point, it does certainly warrant a public warning. The person in the news story was charged with a crime and is in custody, and his name is public record. If you have a problem with that, I suggest you contact the New Westminster Police Department and the New Westminster Supreme Court judge in charge. Sincerely, Laura Fominoff. Thanks, Laura. That was really cool. Sweet. And that charge was capital letters for, it was her emphasis. Yeah. So it's just I just threw that in there as an example of really what we're up against as educated people and people who care about this subject. Is that really a lot more needs to be done to educate members in society and to reduce stigma around HIV, and us as members of the community really I'm glad that we're all here doing that right now. Another example that Michael alluded to was that is really disturbing, really made me sad when I found out about this, was recently the case of the 17-year-old girl in Alberta who was dealing with some mental health issues and was hitchhiking across province and getting rides with who knows, and some of these men went to the police and some people that she was in contact with, and when they found out that she was HIV positive and said that she didn't disclose, and the police responded by having her photo be put in the newspaper and having her name and her HIV status thrown out there too. And this is the first time this has ever happened with a minor in Canadian history or history around criminalization, and it's just a really sad precedent. And I think I don't really have any more commentary on it than that. So I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I feel like there's a lot of ways that we can take action, and here are some points of what we can do to fight the criminalization of HIV. And some of these points have been adapted. It was through an Extra West article, and Extra West has done a really great job and have been the only really media outlet in Canada that have spoken out against criminalization repeatedly. So thank you to them. One of the ways we can do this, like I did, was to write to members of the mainstream media, call on them to task when they present stories that fail to distinguish HIV from violent crime. Tell them that sensationalized witch hunt stories about so-called HIV criminals only perpetuate injustice and misunderstanding. Teach them to think about HIV rationally and to examine their own prejudices. Write to your MP or MLA. Tell them that criminalization of HIV is an unjust approach and demand a halt to failure to disclose charges and convictions. And we did this too with the first case that I was talking about. And we actually got an audience with Bill 6A, who at the time was the NDP critic for gay and trans issues. So that was a positive development. We couldn't really do anything. He gave some good suggestions of how we can educate maybe editorial boards and police departments on the matter. So that was nice of him. Other things, I won't read these all out, but tell your friends about the injustices of criminalization of HIV. Be open about your HIV status if you're positive, and assume complete responsibility for your own sexual health, and that goes for all of us. And finally, there's a call for prosecutorial guidelines in Ontario, where most of the cases have taken place, and most of the cases have been heterosexual relationships, but there's a rise in the amount of homosexual relationships having this go to court, and most of those have happened in Ontario too. And finally, this is me with my interim executive director hat on. You can donate to Youth Code, because there's a lot of really active youth working against this issue. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.